All right, so this is going to be the workshop part, right? So I want to tell you guys something. I want to ask you, did you guys know that there is a huge digital clock in New York's Union Square? Well, there are more digital clocks in New York's Union Square. There's a lot of them, but this one is very different. This one looks like this, and it doesn't really tell time. Well, not in a traditional manner anyway. This is called a climate clock. It was set up in 2020 in September, I think. Maybe you heard of it, maybe you haven't. And it shows how much longer humanity has to change its ways before we irreversibly change the climate. It is clear that changes have to be made, serious changes to a plethora of areas in our society. Everyone needs to do something, from the big companies, right, just as you said, to the little guy, right, to us, humans, individuals, right? We all need to change our ways in some way. And this is more or less where our workshop begins. So I'm certain that unfortunately every single one of us does something that we probably shouldn't do in regards to respecting the environment. Little things, right? We don't have factories in our backyard, for instance, but sometimes we don't recycle as we should. We use maybe too much plastic, too much water, too much electricity, too much anything. And we're not here to throw blame, right? We're not here to shame you or to execute you or anything. So for the purposes of this exercise, this is activity going to be activity number 1, we're going to focus on a stickman, right? A generic person, a literal stickman. So meet Jonathan. Hello. And for this exercise, we're going to focus on this story about his daily life, and we're going to see what we can change, what we identify to be a problem, and we're going to talk a little bit about it. It may seem pretty basic, but it's important to focus on the fundamentals as well, on the more basic things, because we may do them and not be completely aware about them. We talked about this, being aware but not completely understanding something, just as you said about the adults or the grandmas that do kind of know that they're polluting, but they don't really understand. They do know about recycling, but they're not 100% sure until you actually show them what is done and what isn't. All right, so I'll read, story time. All right, Jonathan woke up late, and so he decides to take a cab because where he works is not very far away. Before entering the building, he goes and buys a cellophane-wrapped sandwich and a bottle of water. He then goes to work, takes the elevator up to the 4th floor where his office is, turns on the ancient computer that the company still uses, and clocks in. After work, he goes to do some shopping. He picks out some fruits and vegetables, which are individually wrapped, and some are pre-packed, and some pre-packed instant meals, and a couple of little plastic bags to carry them with. And after he gets home, he turns on all the lights and starts filling the bathtub with hot water. He lets the TV play in the background, and he gets in the tub. After the bath, Jonathan starts thinking about dinner. So he opens the fridge and to his surprise, he notices a bunch of fruits that have gone bad and some milk that has expired. He decides to order something, and 45 minutes later, it arrives. A nice hot meal in a takeout box, a container of sauce on the side, all delivered in a plastic bag with the restaurant's logo on it. And look, they even included some paper napkins and a plastic fork and knife set. How nice of them. And before going to bed, Jonathan throws away all the food he didn't eat and the plastic containers along with it. Now, I would like to ask you, and don't worry, we will put the presentation back on in just a second. What did Jonathan do that was not eco-friendly? And second, what could have Jonathan done instead? So we're going to put the story here, and we're going to analyze it word by word. Yeah, please.
People have gone walking to work instead of...
Yeah. Yes, and that's an interesting point because it raises a little bit of a moral dilemma, right? So Jonathan woke up late. What happens if we go late for work? Well, we're scolded. How dare you be late? So we have the following options. We either pollute and take a taxi. I guess we could take a bicycle maybe, but if we don't have one, what do? Or be late. Right, so which bosses, show me the boss that will be like, oh, it's okay that you're late because you did not pollute the environment. That's not a valuable excuse. I don't think it would work even here, right? So that's, yeah, but yes, that is the environmental friendly thing to do, to take a walk, yes. And it would be nice if there was a little more understanding, but unfortunately there isn't that much. All right. Something else? Anyone, you can all join in.
He could have brought his land from home.
Yes, that is something that you should, and you could think ahead, yeah.
With a
makes-
picnic instead of.
Yeah,
Should use the stairs to go to the fourth floor, maybe.
yeah, you could also use the stairs, yeah. Elevators are, I'm not sure how 100% how they work. I'm not an engineer or anything, but pretty sure they use some sort of power, and yeah, it's more friendly to walk on the stairs, yeah.
And you can use other kind of bags to bring the.
Oh yeah, yeah,
carry
the
everything
plastic
he
bags,
bought.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. There are those tote bags or something
Yeah.
that are recyclable, yes.
Yeah.
True. The plastic bags nowadays that we have, we could make the argument, oh, you could reuse them, yes, but you can only reuse them so much until they break.
Yeah.
Right? And then what do you do with them? They become a problem. Right, yeah, that's also something. They made a solution recently where they made the plastic bags more expensive, but I don't know what that fixed other than putting some more money in the company's pockets, and that's about it. It did not fix the issue. It just costs more now. We still buy it just the same. They're more expensive.
Yeah.
That's it. All right. Anything else?
He should prepare himself his sandwich.
Yeah, yes. Yeah, she said pretty much, yeah. Right, yes. Cooking
He
yourself.
could go to buy what he needs with a cloth bag.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a tote bag, yeah, exactly. Yeah, thermos. Glass is a very good alternative because we've talked about this yesterday about plastics and the different kinds of plastics. As far as I know, and I don't know that much about recycling plastic, since plastic is a man-made thing, right? It doesn't grow in nature. Plastic doesn't grow on trees, right? It can't really be recycled as glass or metal can be. You can't just put everything in one slime and then make something new out of it. Not all plastics can be recycled, and the ones that can be recycled can only be recycled like a couple of times until they start to completely break down. So yeah, that's more depressing news about plastic. You can't really recycle it completely and fully. Not like glass or metal, which can again be turned into something is completely new.
And also, if he heated on the dinner, he don't need to use the plastic fork and knife set.
Yeah, that's the thing. That's a lot of restaurants. You go anywhere, they just throw you these complimentary plastic fork, plastic knife, napkins. You got this at home if you take out, right? And if not, who's gonna judge you at home if you eat with your hands like a caveman, right? So yes, we use too much plastic in a lot of different industries. That's true.
Another thing is have a software because he get in the tap in the tube.
Yeah, different ways of transportation. Yes, not just a cab. Yeah.
Bath.
Oh, the bath. Yes. You could just take a shower, right? Yeah, instead of the bath. Yes, that's true. Baths take a lot of water. They use a lot of water. I think in Japan it's traditional. If you take a bath, you leave the water for the next person. It's yeah, I know maybe it's a bit gross, but it's tradition, right? Let's not be judgmental. It's not only Europe; it's the entire world here, right? Okay.
When I bath,
Hmm?
after some time I use water to water the plants.
Oh yeah, that's another really good idea. Yeah. I once saw there was a YouTuber that was doing cooking, and when she would rinse the vegetables like salad or whatever, she would also use the water to water her plants afterwards. Yeah, that's a really good idea too. Though I don't know if you take a bath and you have a bunch of shampoos and stuff. I don't know if that's gonna affect the plants because it might affect them negatively. So that might be something to think about. Yeah, that's another good idea.
Have we talked about the computer, the Elche?
Oh yeah, the ancient computers, yeah. We all know them, right? Everybody, it's a huge investment to buy new computers because that's also pollution, and we're limiting pollution if we're using like modern machines, right? They usually use a little less energy, they're more...
Low absorption,
Hmm?
low energy
Yes,
computer.
there are alternatives, they use less energy because they're designed better, right? And also about the TV, right? With this, I want to emphasize the point. If we're, for instance, not looking at the TV, again, with the modern things, you can mostly turn all the televisions, like, you can just leave the volume. If you're not in the room and you need something to listen to, right? You don't have a radio or a
Alexa.
phone or Alexa, right? You can just turn the TV on and turn it back on when you get home. And that's the thing, I wanted to emphasize the small changes that we can do, not to change our life radically, right? We can't live in caves and under trees and such because, with 9 years of evolution. But there are small things that we can change, and just as individuals, right, these are important changes, they add up. It's important for huge companies to change their ways as well, but it's important for us individuals to also understand this, and yeah, sure.
What I feel interesting in such pleasant exercise is to observe what is not mentioned.
Okay.
And in this case, it's obvious that Jonathan doesn't practice any sport, any healthy activity.
Yeah, that's also true.
It's just said about taking the lift instead of.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But I think that it will be our topic of it. It's part of healthy environment, because when you have some bad habits in this topic, it can have huge consequences related to health, public health.
Yeah, that's true. Usually the capitalist lifestyle doesn't really have a lot of time for exercise as well. You have the spirit of both an ecologist and a poet. All right. Yeah. Okay. So we live in a very strange world, right? And not in regards to nature, which can be absolutely mesmerizing to say the least, but rather in regards to the society we live in, specifically to the capitalist society we live in. And in our crazy world, we seem to be interested in mostly one thing, which is money. And before I start sounding like I believe everybody to be just like a caricature, right? Like Scrooge McDuck, right? No, okay, never mind then. I want to say that not everybody is driven only by money. But rather what I wish to express is the fact that money has kind of slowly crept its way into becoming the top value in our society, right? And you can look at these things. Let's take an example, right? Who's gonna pick a glass bottle of whatever when the plastic one is so much cheaper, right? And we only have limited funds, limited amounts, and nobody is encouraging really the usage of glass, for instance, and that's a crazy thing that we don't do. So at this point, trying to convince anybody to forfeit their monetary gains for the sake of the environment is pretty much like trying to explain to a bunch of spoiled children that if they don't clean up after themselves, the entire house will start to go downhill. And many companies or corporations will often state that they do protect the environment, that they do care, but they will only do this for publicity. And this is something that we call greenwashing. Maybe you're familiar with the term. It's when a company puts up a seemingly eco-friendly facade in order to increase their chances that you, the consumer, will pick their particular product off the shelf and next time you go shopping. You can see that with a bunch of different companies. I think there was L'Oreal that was doing like a month or whatever where they cared about animals but then test on animals the rest of the 11th months, or so on and so forth. There's a bunch of examples they do. It's just for publicity. But what if there was a world in which these things were regulated? And this is where you guys come in. We have this following exercise. Imagine the following. The European Union, or whichever funding, I just picked one, is willing to fund a program related to saving the environment. In order to receive these funds, you need to come up with a plan, something that you want to do. And you don't have to be alone, and as such you can choose to partner up with any firm or company you think could help you. I know it's a bit vague, I'll explain a bit more what you guys have to do. In order to construct such a plan, you need to consider the following questions. What is the issue? We need to identify an issue in general. We'll have an example after this. So an issue could be too much plastic is being used, too much energy, too much water, not enough recycling, anything. There's a lot of issues, we have a lot of issues, it's okay, it's fine. Who is responsible for it? Usually a company selling it, us people. How and why this is happening? It could be that it's a cheaper alternative. It could be that we are not aware, we don't care, nobody is interested in doing anything about it. What can we do to change this? Right? A different alternative. And how do we do it? Explaining the alternative, showing it, and the how is going to be what you're going to do on the pieces of paper. So let's look at an actual example, right? I've been talking a lot about very vague things. So this is an example, right? The one, we identify the problem. Too much plastic. All right. Who is responsible? People, and are responsible? The companies that produce drinks and sell them in plastic bottles. Why? Plastic is cheaper, but it's not eco-friendly. That's why we have this issue, that's why it's happening. What can we do? We can convince people to drink out of glass bottles, for instance, or any other recyclable materials. And we can partner up with generic soda, you know, pick the sugary poison of your choice, Monster, Hell, Pepsi. I hope they're not going to sue us because of maybe. And how do we do this? Well, we can spread awareness through an ad. We can use certain marketing strategy to discourage the usage of plastic. We can encourage people or companies to use glass or other recyclable materials. So in this case, what you would do on the piece of paper could be an ad campaign, a little bit of an ad, you know, use glass, or it could be like a promotion, you know, use return 10 glass bottles, get the 11 free, right? Anything of that sort. So that's what you guys need to do right now. I'll leave the questions here, and we can get to work. And if you have any question whatsoever, you can ask away.
Okay, thank you.
And we'll divide you in two teams, I guess, half the table. So you guys and you guys. Does that work? Is that okay? All right, wonderful.
Okay.
You should probably move closer together
Yeah,
first
yeah.
of all, right? Because you're quite far away. By the way, I think you can turn on the camera if you're still filming, because I don't want you to use your battery.